best friend that turned out to be the worst person to ever exist. I was best friends with a real life Regina George, except this girl could have literally bullied Regina George into a coma. She was extremely spoiled and she grew up on Mean Girls, Bratz, Gossip Girl, like 2000s coming of age teen dramas where there's always like a stereotypical mean girl. She thought that that's how you were supposed to act in real life, like that kind of behavior was normal. We were a trio of friends. It was me, her, and one other girl. She would make us link arms whenever we walked through the halls or walk in a triangle formation like they do in Mean Girls. When we were in middle school, she would constantly call me fat and make fun of how much food I would eat. For my 11th birthday, she got me hamburger earrings. I saw them in the store and it just reminded me of you because I know Maria loves her food. I wore Keds to school one time and she told me that they were lesbian shoes. I wore my hair in 2 braids one time and she was like, "That looks like a lesbian hairdo. Are you lesbian?" She would always call me a lesbian because I was a tomboy and because she was quoting that scene in Mean Girls where Regina George called Janice a lesbian. She accused me of stealing from her and she said, "Just because I'm skinny and you're fat doesn't give you the right to steal my things to try to make yourself look better." She told me that her cooler older sister told her to stop being friends with me because I was the ugliest girl that she had ever seen. She had no respect or regard for her parents whatsoever. In 8th grade, she told her parents that she was going to unalive herself if they didn't buy her hair extensions. In 9th grade, I started dating this really popular football guy, so I started getting invited to parties and meeting better people. The first party I ever went to was a beach party, and the girls who wear flip-flops to the mall with dirty ass toes in the wintertime. She got a group of those girls to try to jump me in front of everybody at the party because she didn't want me going to the same parties that she was at. 11th grade, her parents bought her a used BMW, and then she made a post on Instagram that said, "Couldn't even take my driver's test because my stupid parents got me illegally tinted windows on my car. But happy birthday to me, 16. She made her parents take back the BMW and trade it for a white Mercedes, which was a lot more expensive, but she said if they didn't do it, then she was going to unalive herself. At my friend's 18th birthday party, every guy that I tried to talk to, she would go out of her way to run up to them while I was saying hi, and she'd be like, "Oh my god, Violet! Oh my god, I haven't seen you in so long! It's so good to see you!" And I mean, every guy that I tried to talk to, even if it was just like, "Hi, hello, how are you?" A friend guy. In 10th grade math, she sat behind me and she would always do this thing where she would pretend to be dumb so that guys would help her. It was to the point where it wasn't even like passable. Like, what's 25 divided by 5? I don't get it. I was the smartest in the math class, but it's not that impressive because it was the special kids math class. And she got really jealous because the teacher made me tutor the dumber people in the class. The teacher would always ask me if I could help her with her work because she was the farthest behind in the class. She was also notorious for attempting to steal people's boyfriends, like all the time. There was this one guy in high school who threw this huge house party and he named it the Thoughty Awards. He had these like actual medals made and then announced Thought of the Year at the party. And there was like 250 people at the party. So this mean girl won the award of Side Chick of the Year, and she goes up and she accepts it and she's like, "Ah, thank you guys, Side Chick of the Year, ah, like you'd be lucky." Because she slept with so many girls' boyfriends and she's tried to steal so many girls' boyfriends.
I lost my virginity. I've been saving this story for a time when I need attention, and I have a song coming out Friday. Story starts when it was hot and it was summer, and I was 18. It wasn't summer, it was winter. I was 18, I think I was about 18 and a half, and I still had not done the deed. And I'm the type of person where the longer I put something off, the more scary and overwhelming it seems. So if I don't just do something, I'm never gonna fucking do it. I remember having a slight moment of panic, like, holy fuck, I'm gonna be a virgin forever if I don't just get this over with and do it. I always thought that I would just have a boyfriend in high school and that's how it would get done, but I never had one. So at this point I was out of high school, and then I remembered I had a trip to visit my parents who lived in Germany at the time, and I was gonna go visit my best friend in England at the same time. Like, get her all done in one trip. So I called my best friend Stevie for advice, and she's like, "I've got a lot of friends, you know, I think they'd do it." At this point, we're basically joking, but not really joking at the same time. And so he started sending me Instagram profiles of people, and there was one that really stood out to me. I was like, damn, he kind of looks like a Burberry model, and that was very much what I was into when I was like 18. But again, it was like, you know, when you make plans with your friends and like you're joking, you're like, this will never actually happen. Like, this is like a joke, like we're just living out a fantasy, but we're taking it very seriously. That was very much the vibe. Anyway, I get to England. We're going out pretty much every night. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment that had a living room, that had a pull-out couch. This is important later. I think I was there a total of like 5 days, and by like the 3rd day, like we're going out every night, but I still hadn't met this mysterious, we'll call him H. Is that too obvious? Okay, we'll call him H. But I still hadn't met this man that he showed me a picture of, and I was kind of like, damn, I guess this isn't really gonna happen. But I wasn't gonna like force it, you know what I mean? Then I think it was like the 4th day, he's like, okay, before we go out, to like the clubs and to the bar, like why don't we like go shopping? He's like, I think my friend's gonna meet us. And I was like, which friend? He's like, you know which friend. So we get to the shops and it's like, oh, I think he's here. And I like look up and I see this. So I see his friend walking towards us in the shops, and I was like, damn, this guy literally looks better than the pictures, and it's just so funny. I was like, is this what it feels like to be a man? Like, you're just picturing people naked. So it's at night, we're walking outside the store. Stevie, my best friend, is walking with my other friend, Lily. I think it was Lily, a few steps ahead of us, and it's just me and H walking. We're kind of talking, we're getting along. In my head, I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to know if Stevie told you anything about the plan. Like, I don't want to know. We're going to avoid that entire topic, that entire conversation, just pretend that neither of us have ever heard of each other for any reason. So we end up going out. We go to a bar, a club. I don't really remember any of this, and I have to check my facts, but I'm pretty sure we got back to Stevie's place and just went to sleep. Like, I'm pretty sure the first night nothing happened. Again, these were a blurry few days. Don't judge me. I was jet lagged and under the influence of many things. I fucked that up. Pretty sure it was the second night. We end up going out again. We get back to Stevie's place and H is there. H came with us and I think we're in the kitchen and he brings up something about it. Something that makes me think, oh my God, Stevie has said something. Stevie has let him in on the plan, on the top secret little plan. And I'm like kind of freaking out because I'm like, what is he gonna say about it? And saying like he knew about it and he was down. I got really into the story and I fucked this up, so we're just gonna ignore that. Okay, fast forward a couple hours, it's later that night, we're still there, and I was like, okay, so that was the height of it. Like, we were gonna just like talk about it. We weren't actually gonna do it. He was just gonna be like, haha, I knew about the plan. Fine. And also logistics, like how is that gonna work? It's a 1 bedroom, and at this point I didn't even know the couch pulled out into a bed. Fast forward another couple hours, Stevie and I think it was Lily are asleep in the bedroom because he had like a huge like bed. And it's just me and H. Anyway, we're talking, we're the only people left awake. The logistics are starting to come together. And then I think it was him who brought it up again. He was like, were you just saying that or did you actually want to? And I was like, no, like, yeah, I mean, I do. Like, I was serious. And he's like, okay, me too. And I was like, oh my God, do you have like a you know? And I have to wait till my mascara is dry to curl it, so we're just gonna add more blush. I don't wanna pause the story now, I'm like into it. Okay, so we're on the couch, we're kissing, and right before we're about to do it, I remembered one last part of my plan. I'm like, oh fuck, like I really, like to have this like perfectly in my head the way I thought, I really needed this one song to be playing. So I find Stevie's laptop, I like open it up, it's still connected to the Bluetooth speaker, and I put on a song that I will never reveal to anyone because I told one person once and they never let me get the end of it. They said it was so embarrassing, and from then on, I decided I will be taking that to the grave with me. I also really wanted the music because I was like pretty sure they were asleep in the next room, but like what if they weren't? I'm really bad at telling stories and I don't know how to say the most important part in a cool way, but yeah, then we did it. To be very honest, I was scared I would have some like crazy like deep regret or start crying after. I felt fucking great, and then we realized that the couch could become a bed, so that was kind of sad that we didn't realize that first. Did I miss anything? I feel like I forgot this really crazy important part of the story. Cold to My Core comes out Friday. Please pre-save it. I love you. Bye.
As long as I live, I will never forget the time a man tricked me into coming over by faking a party. I was like 14 at the time, so this was not recent. And this guy was a couple years older than me. Wish I could go back in time and slap myself across the face, but I can't. Me and this guy have been talking for like a couple months at this point, known each other for a while. But if this guy would have asked me to come over and hang out with him one-on-one, I would have said no, and I think he knew that. So instead of asking me on a date like a normal human being, he decides to text me one Friday morning and be like, hey, I'm having this party tonight. This girl and this girl and this girl that you know are gonna be there. Like, are you down to come? Obviously, I'm 14 at the time. I don't have a car or a license. So I'm like begging my mom, please take me to this. All these people are gonna be there. I really want to go to this party. Like, can you drop me off? He had told me the party started at 4, so I was like, I want to get there at like 4:45. So my mom drops me off. It's my first time ever going to this guy's house, and his mom answers the door. We're gonna call the guy Gage. She turns around and she says something along the lines of, Gage, your girlfriend's here. Gage runs up behind her, and I'm looking at him like, what the hell did you tell her? And she's like, you must be Jessie. It's so nice to meet you. I'm like, it's nice to meet you too. And Gage was like, oh, we're not dating, Mom. And his mom was kind of like, oh, okay. And then he was like, I'll be right back, Jess. Mom will show you inside. I'm just gonna go put on my swim trunks because it was a swim party. He always called me Jess too. That was another thing. I walk inside with his mom and I notice that no one is there. And this party was supposed to supposedly start 45 minutes ago. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty weird. He leaves me alone for like 20 minutes with his mom, who I had never met until this day. And she's sits me down on the couch and starts showing me like baby pictures and all the pictures of Gage like growing up, and she's like, look at how cute he is. And I'm thinking, oh, what did I just get myself into? Finally, Gage comes back out. He's like, okay, you can go change in there and put on your swimsuit, like we're gonna swim. So I put on my swimsuit, I'm walking outside with him, and I'm like, okay, so when is everyone else getting here, like for the party? And he was like, oh, the party, yeah, I think everyone's just like running really late. They're probably picking up food or something. I haven't really been hearing from anyone. It's kind of weird. And I'm like, bro. And I told my mom to pick me up at 11, and we lived like 40 minutes away, so I didn't want to make her drive all the way out there, so I was basically stuck there until 11. I end up swimming with him and his brothers for like an hour, and his mom is outside like taking pictures of all of us. Just the whole thing was weird. And then he's like, come on, I'll come show you my room. So we go downstairs into the basement where his room is. We go in his room. He turns off the lights, shuts the curtain, and locks the door. This guy fakes a party to get me to come over to his house, locks me in his room with him, turns out all the lights. Keep in mind, I'm 14. This guy's a couple years older than me, and I did not sign up for this. I signed up for a party with people I know that were supposed to be there. And then he's like, so I literally turned around and went and opened the door, and I was like, can we leave the door open? W, Jesse. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay. And then I ended up sitting on his bed watching him play Fortnite for like 2 hours. And then he had 3 of his other guy friends come over. I swear it was literally after he realized he wasn't going to get any action. So it was me and like 6 guys for the rest of the night. After that, I literally never hung out with him again. But the story does not end there, because I run into him at a graduation like a couple years later. He was like, oh my god, Jesse, like it's so good to see you. How have you been? I'm like, good. How are you? Very awkward interaction. I wanted to die, but then I go home and he DMs me and he's like, hey, I would love to hang out again sometime if you want to come over again. Obviously, I said no. And then bro blocked me because he was mad. So I think the cherry on top of all this though is my best friend was trying to shit talk him to me after all this happened, and she accidentally sent it to him. I don't know how she did that, but he made a post about it on his story, and he was like, when you think someone's your friend, even though he had never talked to her before ever. And that's the end of that story.
I'm feeling messy right now, so I'm gonna dish the tea, all right? Begin. When my mom's 19, she gets pregnant with me. She's not married, so her and my dad decide we should get married. We're having a baby. She has me. A month later, gets pregnant with my sister. They got 2 kids, okay? My dad's in the military. He gets stationed in Alaska. So we moved to Alaska, and then 2 years later, he gets deployed to Iraq. While he's in Iraq, marriage falls apart, parents divorce, my mom moves my sister and I to Oklahoma. 2 years go by, haven't heard from dad, and all of a sudden he reaches out saying he moved to Texas and he wants to be in my sister and I's life again. So graciously, my mom agrees. She lets us see our dad. Turns out he wanted to introduce us to his new wife, who is now my stepmom. We start seeing my dad and stepmom twice a year, and every time we mentioned my mom, my stepmom got so pissed. She was so bitchy and so rude about it, and we just weren't allowed to talk about my mom, and we didn't know why. Fast forward, my mom marries my stepdad. They also decide to move to Texas, and we end up within a 1-mile radius of my dad and stepmom. Total coincidence. But because of that, we started seeing my dad and stepmom every other weekend. Fast forward to middle school. One day, my mom's out of town, and my stepmom is supposed to pick my sister and I up from school, but she doesn't show up. She sends us a text saying that she decided to go back to Alaska to see her parents, and she's sorry she didn't come. So we call stepdad, show him the text, and he says, I bet your dad cheated on her. And we're like, why the fuck would you say that? And he said, because he cheated on your mom. We didn't know that because mom never told us that, but he gets the permission from my mom to show us all of the court documents, and sure enough, my dad cheated. So the next weekend, my stepmom's back in town, and her and my dad still want to see us that weekend, so we go over. They sit us down. She tells us that he had an affair, okay? I'm sitting there, super awkward. My sister's crying, and then she apologizes to us for always being so rude about my mom and hating my mom. She says that my dad told her the reason him and my mom got divorced was because my mom kidnapped us while he was in Iraq, and so she hated my mom because she thought that she was a kidnapper. After this, they decide that they want to make their marriage work because they have a kid, so they move to Alaska so she can be close to her family, and they continue working on their marriage. Throughout the years, my sister and I go to Alaska, back and forth. We're still seeing them. Fast forward to my high school graduation. They were going to come down to see my graduation, and so were my stepmom's parents, okay? My step-grandparents. The day comes, they text me, I go to their hotel room, and I see no sign of my grandparents. So I say, where's grandma and grandpa? My stepmom tells me, well, grandpa's in jail because he tried to kill your dad. Turns out, grandpa was drunk one night and was so mad that my dad cheated on his precious daughter that he took a literal shotgun, 12 gauge, pointed it at my dad. My dad called the cops, had him arrested. Grandpa gets let out of the slammer the next day because he made bail, because turns out the shotgun was not actually loaded. So my grandma paid his bail. He gets let out, but he now has an ankle monitor, cannot go anywhere, and my dad and stepmom have a restraining order against them, so they don't see them anymore. Fast forward, my sister and I go to college. Because of summer classes, jobs, whatever, we're not able to see my dad and stepmom as much, so our relationship starts getting kind of rocky. We're not talking as much, not seeing each other anymore. All of a sudden, my sister takes a biology class in college, and her professor recognizes our last name. So she asks her, are you related to my father? She says, yes, how did you know that? She says, I was deployed with your dad, stationed at the same place. Come to find out, my sister's biology professor in college is the woman that my dad had an affair with on my mom. So we discovered that information. We talked to my dad. We both end up graduating college, but my dad shows up to both of our graduations and takes us out, complains and bitches the whole time about how expensive the hotel room was, the flight, all of this stuff. Just like, why are you even here kind of thing? Like, you don't need to be here. We end up having a huge falling out, and we stop speaking to him. We block him on everything. The only form of contact that we have now with our dad is when he shoots us emails just telling us what he's doing with his life. I have 2 half siblings that are 10 years and 15 years younger than me, and they don't really know me, and it's really sad, but yeah, that's the way it is.
Do you think teachers should have to respond to parents' emails when they're gone from school for their wedding or their honeymoon? I didn't think so. Story time. Tuesday evening, I received an email from a parent asking me to bump up her kid's grade from a 79% to an 80% because he wanted A/B honor roll. He hadn't submitted half of a large project that had been due 30 days prior, which had brought his grade down, and then didn't submit a review guide for a test that was due a week prior, bringing his grade down. She tried to claim that his iPad died during the upload, so it wasn't his fault. Being already off work and officially on my wedding time vacation, I didn't respond. She proceeded to email me again Wednesday morning and then again on Thursday morning. But this time, she CC'd my assistant principal. On Thursday afternoon, when I was on my way to our wedding venue for rehearsal, I received a text message from my office manager telling me that I needed to check and respond to the email from that parent so I could figure out how to deal with changing his grade. And if I wasn't able to check my email, that they would send me pictures of it so I could read it and respond. That's really nice of them. I was so annoyed and just responded with, I'm on my way to my wedding rehearsal and I'm not available to handle that now. I got no response. Fast forward to me returning the week after spring break from my honeymoon. I came back to my classroom that was trashed. Inappropriate words were written on my board, my desks and chairs were everywhere. My sub-plans had half-completed attendance, weren't passed out, or if they were, they didn't follow directions, so all of my class sets of work were written on. The classes that were assigned to do projects, only about a third of my kids completed them. When I asked my students what they did while I was gone, they told me the sub just sat at the desk on her phone the whole time while they did whatever they wanted. Meanwhile, I knew I still needed to handle the parent grade situation, so I called my assistant principal. I said, now that I'm back, I've read the emails from Jimmy's mom. I don't think he deserves the grade change. However, I wanted to ask you how you wanted me to handle it based on your conversation with the parent. What did your conversation consist of? My assistant principal said, oh, I didn't answer her. Please keep in mind, it's been 2 weeks since this parent emailed us. They made such a big deal about me answering when I was off for my wedding, but my assistant principal didn't even answer. She ended up telling me just to handle it however I wanted and hung up. The support is non-existent from leadership, and you as a teacher are just another number. Your personal lives don't matter. Weddings are stressful enough. It's one of the most stressful times in people's lives already. And to receive extra stress from an outside source that's already so stressful, and you're wanting a vacation from that, but you have to, that's like seeping its way into your most special time in your life. Yes, it's super stressful, but your most special time in your life. Get out of here and stop blaming your kid's grades on things that are so controllable. If you're that worried about his grades, have him go plug his iPad in. Dang. It doesn't take 30 days to charge an iPad. What a terrible thing to have to come back to after your wedding. Like, not only does your admin not give a crap, but the person that was in your classroom for this long didn't give a crap either. And so now everything, you have to start over. You have to, I mean, it's just, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. And if it was that important that they were like, hey, you need to get back to this parent, the admin should step up and be like, this teacher is at her wedding and on her honeymoon. Like, we'll handle this. You know, like, hey, hang tight until she gets back, or your child is missing these assignments. There's no way in HE double hockey sticks that they're bumping up a grade, like, or a whatever.
So I remembered this story today, and I just need to tell you guys the story about why I don't surf anymore. And I don't know if I've said it on here before, but I'm going to say it again. So one time we had surf camp in year 9. So like we had this whole lesson on how to surf or whatever. And then we were in the water in like crazy waves. Like, oh my God. So most of the day when we're in the water, I could not catch a single wave. I would keep like catching them, and then I would get caught under the wave and like tumble. Like I've never spun so fast in my life. I don't know what was going on. Anyways, I see this big wave. I'm like, yep, I'm gonna get this. Remember, there's a bunch of us kids, we're all 16 in the water together. I'm like, I see this wave. I'm like, you know what? I'm literally gonna, I don't know how this happened. I'm gonna catch this wave. So I go get on the wave, and I get on it, and now I'm like riding on it like this, and I'm like, what's happening? All of a sudden, I don't know what the fuck, and I'm naming and shaming, but this girl Abigail decided to somehow catch the same wave from behind me, and somehow her part of the wave, I don't know, was going faster, and this girl ended up on top of me while I was on the surfboard. Can you imagine how stupid this looks? I'm like a bloody circus trick. I was on the surfboard like this, and I turn, I'm like, Abigail, what are you doing? She's like, I don't know. And her surfboard was you think I'm making this up, was on top of my body like this, and she was on top. So I didn't even have the opportunity to stand up because this chick's freaking riding me as the wave. I was like, I don't know what I expected her to do, but I was like, Abigail, what are you doing? Like, get off. And she's like, I don't know. So we literally rode, I'm not even joking, back to the shore with this girl on top. With this girl on top of my body, we rode back to the shore. She eventually slid off, and then we got onto the sand, and we stayed on it onto the sand. And I was like, what the hell was that? I was just what the hell was that, bro? You saw me get on the wave. You saw me get on the wave. Why would you come right behind me? Now that I think about it, I guess it's not her fault, because how would she have expected that to happen? But was that a circus trick? Did we just invent something that's never been done before? It was literally a sandwich, a surfboard sandwich, riding together. Can you imagine how stupid it was? Everyone else was just and I'm yelling, trapped under a surfboard. Anyways, after that, I promise I am never surfing again. I can't handle when I'm not good at something. The fact that I could not catch a wave the whole day, and as soon as I did, that happened. Too much.
I've dressed to get dinner tonight, and this man is on his way, and he's booked dinner, and he's coming to pick me up, and he texts me as I'm getting ready, half an hour before, and he goes, I kid you not, word for word, all right, you shallow bitch, don't judge my car. I've had it since I was 18, and no one has a car in London. This is our second time meeting, and he is a over 30-year-old plus man, has a normal career, and we barely have a friendly relationship. It's only our second time getting dinner together. And I was just like, what? No one... I barely call my friends cuss words, and if we ever do playfully call each other bitch, it's very, very, very few friends in person, and it's people that I'm very close with. I have very little tolerance for cuss words, especially with men I go on dates with. So this really threw me off, and I told him, I was like, what? Why would you call me that? And then as I'm getting ready, and I talked to my younger brother, and I told him what happened. He goes, what? Don't go to dinner. And I initially didn't feel like I could have just canceled because I felt bad that this person was on their way. But then I thought to myself, you know what? This is not okay for me. And these are my standards. I don't want to get dinner with someone that can just call me that whenever they want. And so literally as he got here, I let him know. And he calls me and complains and says that it's rude that I intentionally let him know now that he's driven across the city. And when I explained to him, hey, like, I didn't know how I was feeling, like I didn't realize how upset it made me feel, and I was being super respectful, he literally hung up on me. And then 10 minutes later sent me a long ass apology. This is a grown man over 30 thinking it's okay to call a woman a bitch before coming to pick her up for dinner. But you know what? When one door closes, another opens, because another sweet boy who is planning a date began texting me about the next date that he was planning for us. And moral of the story is, don't be afraid to cut people off on the first go, because what the hell?
A woman was one of the most successful serial killers during the Renaissance era. Giulia Tovana killed over 600 men in the span of 50 years without being caught, until in a shocking twist, a bowl of soup caused her downfall. In the 17th century in Italy, women were treated as objects, and the era of arranged marriages left women with no possibility of divorce or power. The only way out of an unhappy marriage was death. Women who didn't marry had no standing in society and few opportunities to better their situation. Most would need to turn to escort work to survive. Women in loveless marriages who were abused by their husbands wanted a way out, and Tofana made it her mission and her business to help aspiring widows unalive their husbands. Giulia was born in Palermo in 1620. Her mother was the infamous Dofiana de Amato, who was executed for unaliving her own husband in 1633. It's been rumored that she was the one who passed on the recipe for the best performing poison to her daughter. Giulia was skilled in brewing all kinds of tinctures from a young age. She started her own black market makeup trade and expanded it across Rome. She harbored a soft spot for women trapped in loveless, suffocating marriages, and she started selling makeup with a few secret ingredients, including a mixture of lead, arsenic, and belladonna. Her best-selling product was Aqua Tofana, a face cream or oil used to preserve women's youth, or procure a status of widowhood. It contained some of the same ingredients used in normal cosmetics as well, so it blended in perfectly on a woman's vanity. Husbands were none the wiser that their wife's beauty regimen was their death warrant. Another element of Giulia's poison that made it so masterfully deceitful is how it killed its victims. The first dose, normally diluted with some kind of liquid, would cause exhaustion and physical weakness. The second would bring on stomach aches, vomiting, and dysentery. The third or fourth dose would finish them off. The poison and method of administering it meant that doctors and investigators believed that the death had been caused by some unknown illness or disease. The slow nature of poisoning the victims meant that they had a chance to get their affairs in order, and their wives were to exert their influence over what that order looked like. Those deaths were never believed to be more than a tragic young life lost to their sick beds. The poison was undetectable and the murders were free of suspicion, and Giulia's business flourished. She sold to women that she knew or women who had been vetted by past clients. Unfortunately, a bowl of soup was eventually her downfall, when one customer who procured Aqua Tofana, planning her husband's demise, got cold feet. After mixing a few drops of the deadly liquid into her husband's soup, she panicked and begged him not to eat it, inadvertently revealing the criminal activities of Giulia and her accomplices. The husband forced his wife to give up Tofana and the rest of her network of poisoners, then got police involved. Giulia was beloved by the people, especially women that she had helped. She got word of her warrant before the authorities came knocking and was granted sanctuary by the local church until a rumor began to spread that she had poisoned the city's water supply and the government took action. They subjected her to gruesome and horrific torture until she confessed to unaliving over 600 men from 1633 to 1651 in Rome alone. She and her most reliable accomplices, including her daughter, were executed in Campo de' Fiori in Rome in 1659. Dozens of lower-class women were executed after it was revealed that they were customers, while many upper-class ladies were imprisoned or banished for their involvement. Tofana's legacy of her poisons and proof of power directly influenced the affair of poisons in 17th century France, leading to the rise of La Voisin and the attempted murder of King Louis XIV. On his deathbed, famed composer Wolfgang Mozart allegedly blamed his sudden, mysterious illness on Giulia's creation, exclaiming, "I'm sure that I've been poisoned. I cannot rid myself of this idea. Someone has given me Aqua Tofana and calculated the precise time of my death. If poison is truly a woman's weapon, no one has wielded it like Giulia Tofana. Do you think that she was a murderer or a heroine?"
Get ready with me for a New Year's party while I tell you guys about the time I was 12 years old and got caught up for sending pics. I was in 7th grade. The guy that I liked asked me if I wanted to send. I'm not sure how many people he sent mine to, but I really can't be complaining because I clipped his ass and I sent it to one of my friends and I was like, oh my god, like look how big it is. It took long for both of our stuff to get around the literal middle school. When I sent it to my friend, she sent it to a bunch of other people, but at this point in the story, I didn't really know that. People were seeing pictures of my butt, but I was like, whatever. One day I was standing in the lunch lane at school and this girl came up to me. She tells me that the police were calling people out of their classes and interviewing them. And at first, the police didn't really even know that I was involved. but people mentioned my name and they figured out it was me, and I was soon to be called in myself. All I could think about at this point is like all the incriminating ass evidence I had on my phone. So I run out the cafeteria to the library, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to delete everything from my phone, and managed to kind of hide out for like 30 minutes until one of the administrators came up to me, asked me what my name was, and told me to go to the office. Walk into the office, it's both of my parents and a cop, and the cop starts explaining to me that as a minor, if you send, distribute, or have possession of those types of pictures, it's considered child and it's illegal. Started crying, and they were like real tears, but like I was playing the victim. Let me off with a warning. Hi, Happy New Year's.